long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, they put a woman in a I can't even say it. A British man in my fucking Star Wars.
That's a bit. Okay.
I had 30 seconds to come up with it. So
a British guy and a lady in your fucking Star Wars, and a Hispanic guy, a really beautiful Hispanic guy. So hold on, let me to quote directly directly from my award-winning essay. While the canosity of a non-white stormtrooper was a point of contention among more privately bigoted Star Wars fans, the majority of the hashtag can't boycott Star Wars 7 racist conversation centered on the belief that the film's casting of people of color took roles away from white actors. This movie is so 2015, 2016 pills.
It really is. Yeah, it really is. I mean, that's the problem with it, is it's responding, not that it's a product of its cultural moment, but that it's like so pointedly like
a product of 2015, 2016 discourse.
So pointedly
that it stops feeling, it doesn't feel timeless. It feels very stuck in the moment in which it was made.
It's like, well, we want millennials to like Star Wars. Like, millennials already like Star Wars. And it's not like, I was joking in the intro, obviously.
Yeah.
I think it's appropriate to be cynical about the motivations of companies when every show looks like a picture out of a textbook or Captain Planet. But it's not like actually a bad thing to put women and black people in Star Wars or whatever. But yeah, I do think it's annoying to like structure your movie around pointed responses to like YouTube videos and TV tropes pages and just that conversation. And this I feel like is one of the early examples of movies starting to do that.
Well, there was like a backlash to this movie that there was a like from the release of the first trailer, because this was true. Like a bunch of, as I wrote in the article that was hilariously published and given an award that we'll pick apart later in this episode. So we're doing our reading series on a Nicole award-winning essay. That in retrospect,
a bit of intellectual self-harm.
Intellectual self-harm or intellectually roasting me. It's the roast of Nicole Veneto. Like, you remember the guy, Roosh V? He ran Return of Kings. Yeah.
Didn't he convert to Islam or something?
Did he?
Or maybe it was like Eastern Orthodox Christianity.
Probably. I saw
the last couple of years he went on like a huge religion.
Of course, that's what all those like trip. MRA guys are doing now. They're all weirdo tradcaps. But yeah, there was like, because when the first trailer for the movie dropped, a bunch of people were very angry that one of the main characters is John Boyega because he's black, and he saw there's the part in the one of many trailer bait scenes in the movie that is featured in the trailer where he's holding the lightsaber. So there was a backlash against the movie before it came out, just based on the trailer. Like, oh, SJWs are taking Star Wars from us, which yeah is one of those like 2014, 2016 like Tumblr era like political cultural neuroses of the moment that in retrospect is really not that big a deal.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the real like
here's the tea.
Source of aggravation with this stuff is, so you put a black guy in Star Wars, and then you hint maybe he's the main character, maybe he's going to be the new Luke, whatever, and he is. They kind of, that's the other thing is like, for all the foofara, they like fuck that character over with
John Boyega.
They kind of fuck him from the start. Like they don't.
They gave him such good. Finn has such good setup, like conceptually as a character, and like you could, this whole movie you can just describe as all setup, no payoff. Like revisiting this movie after like the last one has come out and knowing nothing that's being set up here is going to pay off meaningfully or have any importance, that like everything
even
everyone on Tumblr came up with as an explanation is infinitely better thought out than what JJ Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy shit out of their butts.
We'll get to that too, that stuff. But we should probably save this for the when we talk about the cultural context of the movie. But we we jumped into it because I had a half baked cold open idea. Was that you create this antagonism or provocation of people that get mad at that sort of thing, idiots. And then you use that antagonism, you take their response, and it creates this like, these guys, here's the looming fascist threat, here's the First Order, and they don't like the movie because it's liberal and progressive.
It's about how bad they are.
And feminist and anti-racist. Yeah. So you've got to watch and like the movie to own them and stop them before they take over. You've got to defend the movie and promote the movie. And it's just this marketing trip. Like, those guys don't matter. And even if they mattered, their opinions on movies don't. And the success of a movie with a black guy in it, or a woman, or a black woman, or a black trans woman, or a
guy with no legs.
Know anything. Just like pick off the list.
A Chinese guy with no legs.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. And telling you that it matters is just a way to get you to be a stan and provide free marketing and get overly emotionally connected to a product. And this is the thing. Like, there's a lot of guys that recognize this and are also like mad about reverse racism, and the fact that they're the former is used to sort of discredit the other part of the point. But that is like the nugget of truth there, that the thing that I think they recognize as sort of bullshit, even if they're also mad for stupid reasons about stupid things, is that it is just a mind slavery trick that companies started using in the mid 2010s,
and if
to
that
capitalize off the culture war.
And if that doesn't work, what will always work, and what still worked on me, is you take a pre-existing IP character and make them a littler guy, and that's essentially. Like, take R2-D2, make him little, make him rounder. I mean, so of the few new ideas The Force Awakens puts forward, or new concepts or new characters, I'm sorry, but I fucking love BB-8. He's white and orange, and you know how I love white and orange little guys.
So it's had a few interesting ideas. One, what if there's a soccer ball? Two,
with a volleyball on top of it.
What if Dylan Harris was the bad guy? And three, what if a stormtrooper didn't want to be a stormtrooper anymore? And then four, what if a girl?
What if Luke Skywalker was a girl?
And of those, I think two of those are actually legitimately interesting. And one of them would have been interesting if they actually had an interesting idea to go with it. I feel like that's, yeah. So I guess we'll just jump in. So we I don't think we really need to summarize the plot.
No, it's like the big criticism. You've probably seen this, and you've
probably seen the original Star Wars. If not, you get the idea. There's people in fantasy space
a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Learns that they're a wizard, and they have some spaceship chases. They fight some space Nazis, and then they blow up a really, really, really big space gun. The end.
Yeah.
Everyone gets medals.
There's no medal ceremony at the end of this. No one gets a medal.
Oh yeah. That's kind of a missed opportunity.
That's dare I say, subversive.
That is really funny.
Didn't they do that? They're like, here, Chewie, here's your medal that people complain about. Why did Chewie get a medal at the end of A New Hope?
Yeah.
They're like, we need we got like a shit ton of other things we're not going to tie up, but we need to make time for this.
Well, I mean, that's the mentality that goes into these movies, is just
all references of things,
I think marketing people either genuinely think, or they know that no one else knows better, that like Twitter and YouTube video essays and like think pieces on Upworthy or whatever refinery,
Mary Sue.
Yeah, I think they think that like that stuff like matters and constitutes like a major audience opinion, because it's like polling logic, where it's like, well, we've got a sample of 5,000 people and that represents the other 49 million. So they think it's like representative samples, versus the fact, and the people that post online or write that stuff or read that stuff are all wildly atypical. Normal people don't post, and normal people don't read think pieces about movies.
Yeah.
And so I think that they always feel like they need to incorporate all this stuff in to connect with the millennial and now Zoomer demographic. And it just always feels so obvious, and it's irritating.
Yeah. Well, I guess a good example of that is, and as much as we watched this together over video chat, and I really, really loved this movie when it came out, hence why I ended up writing an essay on it. But like, as we were watching it, like at the beginning, I'm like, oh, remember that? Like this looks good. This looks good. John Boyega, as much as I love him as like an actor, like he's very charismatic.
He's a great actor.
Great
like,
actor, but
they just
the dialogue they give him is so millennial pilled.
They make him like he's a stormtrooper, and it says somewhere in the movie that he was like, or maybe
kidnapped as a child,
and like raised in a barracks, basically.
Yeah, brainwashed his entire life, like deprogrammed of a personality. And again, one of the more interesting ideas this movie has that unfortunately ends up going fucking nowhere.
As soon as and there is like a solid image, like, there's an opening fight. Oscar Isaac gets captured by Adam Driver, and they have their little encounter, and immediately, we get into the proto or quasi decent soy dialogue. Like, well, do you go first? Do I go first? Like,
although Oscar Isaac has such like handsome charm that it kind of feels like a deliberate like.
Well, he's also like very Han Solo.
Good. Yeah,
so he can
kind of gets away with it.
Like they both sell it a lot better than less talented actors could sell it. And like his character is at least like, okay, he's a hotshot. It's like kind of in character, even if it's a little too like, I know I'm in a movie fucking dialogue. But Finn, John Boyega's character is immediately this like weird kind of this goofball who's just like, you got a girlfriend? You got a girlfriend? I'm with the resistance guy.
I'm with the resistance.
This kind of mumbling, riffing guy.
He's being John Boyega.
And it doesn't, like, I don't know if that's
a little
true.
bit.
I don't know enough about
it. Just,
but it's like this guy. So is this guy like raised in a barracks, kind of like conscripted in the military service, like a fucking like an Ottoman janissary. And where did this personality and this way of talking come from? That it doesn't fit the character, or not, but it doesn't fit the concept. But it's like they just for all this Sturm and Drang about him being the nominal leader or whatever, they give him so little to work with or do, and don't expand on the concept. They just have him run in comic relief mode most of the movie, and it's such a waste, I think, of him as an actor and of the concept.
Because he's like, you've seen Attack
not
the
that
Block.
He can't be,
and he's
good movie. He's very good.
Fucking fantastic.
He's good in this with what they give him to do.
Yeah.
But it's just like, again, it's frustrating that lack of imagination and or lack to capitalize on their concepts out of fear of possibly alienating anybody. that they can't, like, it's not that he can't be like a guy who's sort of self-interested and maybe socially
a little
awkward
cowardly.
or whatever.
They make him a little bit cowardly. Like he really, his whole thing is, he wants to get away from the First Order.
He doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to die. He doesn't want to die in the Star Wars.
That's the thing that like breaks him out of his like decades long mind like washing psychosis is the moment he like it's because it's said in the dialogue it was his like first combat mission, so literally the first time he's actually shooting
he
a gun.
He sees a guy die in his arms and he leaves the blood streak on his stormtrooper mask and he takes off. Like, that's not like good imagery, actually.
That's like, great imagery.
And then it's just not built on or developed, and it's actively undermined, and it's such a and they do all that because actually building on that concept might be a little too dark, might be a little too weird, might bum people out, so we'll just have him be Mr. Goofball Riff Guy all movie. And just use him as a fucking bludgeon to do this like sub Anita Sarkeesian pop feminism shit with Rey. This don't take my hand.
Like as soon as don't take my.
No, it's like repeated. Stop grabbing my hand over and over again.
Oh yeah.
Through that escape sequence, which is such a like on the nose like. Because as soon as he sees her in the market, he crash lands on the not Tatooine, and she gets attacked by some guys. And he runs to help, and she's defeated all the guys before he can even get there.
Yeah, she kicks butt. Because which I will say, because people also complained.
Like it's fine that she knows how to fight. That's whatever.
She's as like developed as Luke Skywalker
scavenger
was in terms of like
just martial skills. Sure,
she's a Gary Stu. Like he's a Gary Stu. No, she's a Gary Stu.
No, the Mary Sue thing is categorically wrong because a Mary Sue is an author self-insert. The Mary Sue is who the author wants to be.
That's what. No, I mean like Gary Sue, Mary Sue, and like the wide misunderstanding of it is like a perfectly. Oh, they're just automatically excellent at whatever they do. They have no flaws, no. She's an audience surrogate though.
A very like, and I don't. Like I don't know how to evaluate Daisy Ridley as an actress. I haven't seen her in anything else. And her character is so like featureless and textureless.
Yeah, Rey is kind of a little one note, which I guess you could say again, like
I don't even one note, just more like a tone.
Well, I mean, like on the one hand, you can say that's like maybe intentional as a way to just have, like a complete nobody, which is something Rian Johnson tried to push. That was one of his better, more interesting ideas.
The second movie is when Rey as a character comes closest to being interesting. Because they kind of like have things, but like she just has no texture as a character at all. Like there's just nothing to grab onto. And that's, like that. And I mean, Luke Skywalker is arguably one of the weakest parts of Star Wars.
Yeah, no one, when kids were watching Star Wars growing up, they didn't want to be Luke. They wanted to be cool ass Han Solo.
Yeah, but he's still got a bit like, but at least it's kind of like, oh, he's like a farm boy and he wants to be a space pilot and go on adventures. And then his adopted family is murdered. Like there's something.
Yeah. Well, whereas Rey she's been abandoned on Jakku since she was a child. She's been like living on her own as like this you know what? This reminds me of something because I saw this movie in the theater with my best friend and I distinctly remembered part of the conversation we had after. I said like, I was thinking explicitly of the first scene in which we meet Rey, which is actually kind of visibly interesting because we just see this,
this movie mostly looks pretty good.
This movie looks
I don't really have complaints about how the movie looks.
No, but we agreed. We were thinking like, oh, kind of reminded us a little bit of like Nausicaa in a way. Like I think like we were suspecting because she has like a really nice little like interlude in her theme that just kind of
I don't remember talking about Nausicaa, but like that is like a better version.
That was my point.
Of this sort of character.
That was my point.
Yeah. Oh, Nazca. I actually, I really am. I'm very fond of Nazca.
Or even more, if she was more like a Princess Mononoke, in that, so if she was more of like a Miyazaki female protagonist, like I could see this
Yeah, well, like
going down a lot better.
Nazca's like a good example of that, where she's a very conventionally heroic character, very competent, all that stuff. But like she has texture and motivations and is endearing. She's not a total blank slate for audience projection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like I said all I had to say about.
Yeah, well, we can move on from Daisy Ridley / Ray. I
don't want to lump the two together because it's not Daisy Ridley's fault that they gave her a character with so little fucking character. I really just don't want to dump that. And I mean, she's fine. I just, she might be great for all I know.
This was her first major acting role in anything. Like, because I guess before, like, the only thing she had been in beforehand was like a cadaver in a student film.
Yeah, and Oscar Isaac and John Boyega are, especially Oscar, more experienced actors.
They also have great chemistry together on screen.
They do,
I will say.
Yeah.
They're great to watch.
It's too bad how little they're on screen together. Honestly.
which is part of why the shipping around them was fueled so much, because it was like teasing them, like, oh, we want more.
And that's the thing. Like, there's tons of pieces here that I'll just kind of state my my thesis on these, which is, one, in principle, we should have just stopped making Star Wars movies in 1983. And then people should just be incorporating Star Wars as raw material into new things they make, the way Star Wars was made up of Flash Gordon and Hidden Fortress and Magnificent Seven and Dam Busters, et cetera, et cetera. But if we are going to have more Star Wars, like, there's a ton of pieces here for a way better more Star Wars that are just not utilized effectively or assembled properly, or are just kind of left on the floor because they're operating under the same economic pressures and mechanism that makes the MCU what it is. And also specifically because JJ Abrams is a hack.
Let's JJ Abrams is a hack.
He's a very competent hack, but he's a hack.
Let's talk a little bit about JJ Abrams.
Yeah, let's talk about
his mode of storytelling.
The plot mechanically. Here, I'll sketch out the plot mechanically of this movie, and then we can talk about JJ Abrams plotting, the mystery box, which is a thing he named and called that.
Oh my god! Wait, he named it himself?
Yeah, he's the one that was. He sat down in interviews and said, "Mystery box. This is how you do a plot." He's named it and explained it himself, so it's like a deliberate thing he does. And so here's how the plot of this movie is structured. We introduce our characters, Finn, Poe Dameron, Oscar Isaac gets captured by the bad guys. Finn wants to stop being a stormtrooper, so he breaks them out. That's an okay start. They land on a desert planet where Rey just happens to be a scavenger. Fine. But then they stumble into the Millennium Falcon, which is just there. It just happens to be there. And then as soon as they find it, they happen to run into Han Solo. As soon as they get off the planet, he's there. They just happen. Oscar Isaac apparently dies only to come back later in the movie. Which, again, why isn't he just part of the adventure? I don't know.
Because there needs to be some sort of suspense.
But why not just you've got these characters with chemistry, just have them be in the movie together and interact, God forbid. And then they just happen to they just happen to know that this map that Oscar Isaac found. Oscar Isaac, somewhere in the desert, for some reason, found an artifact with a map on it. And BB-8 has the map. It's like the Death Star plans. And the map is going to show where Luke Skywalker is. Because that's the most important thing, is just finding this washed up old Jedi. That'll what make or break the fucking fight for the galaxy. And so we've got to find Luke Skywalker. So they just happen to have the map, and then they go to a place to meet a gnome and with butthole eyes, and they just happen to
Her
have
name is
Luke.
Lupita Nyong'o. Respect her.
Well, she's not really in the movie. She's just voicing a cartoon character.
That's also worth,
but then,
criticism.
She just happens to have Luke's lightsaber, which just happens to give Rey a bunch of cryptic visions that don't mean anything.
It chooses her, though. It's its way
it's a
of
mystery.
Her.
Oh, where is Oscar Isaac dead? Oh, does she have a secret history, which she doesn't, and then she does later in movies? It's like, ooh, it's lost. It's fucking lost. It's, oh, here, what's this thing? That might be something. What's this? That might be something. It's mysteries, quote unquote.
It's a mystery.
Where's Luke Skywalker? That's the thing. The movie's just structured on asking a bunch of seemingly provocative questions that it's fine it's fine to not have the answers to everything, as long as you can deliver down the line as a writer. You don't actually have to have a plan. But you've got to come across like you have a plan when you wrap things up. And then, they blow up an even bigger
a giant
Death Star. But
that's the size of a planet.
That's like the structure of the movie until they get to the end, is just coincidences and mysteries. And the idea is just to get the audience so interested in finding, you throw a bunch of questions at them that are supposed to intrigue them, or unknowns or whatever. And then you string them along, and then you give them an answer, and whether or not the answer is satisfying doesn't matter, because you have another thing to string them along with. And that's what the mystery box is. It's a fucking, what's in the box? Oh, there's another box. What's in the box? There's another box. That's just on and on and on forever. So it's just a really flimsy structure that doesn't hold up when you think about it or revisit it, right? Like, it made a great first season of Lost, but then it made a terrible next 5 seasons of Lost, right?
Yeah.
It makes a great first movie the first time you watch it, but when the other movies come along and can't provide satisfactory answers and have to wrap things up, or when you watch the movie a second time and realize that it has like no storytelling integrity or structure, it just falls apart. And that's the mystery box. You can find interviews with JJ Abrams who just sits down and explains this, where it's just keep feeding mysteries to the audience to keep them intrigued and to keep them just on to the next thing. So you're just like, here's a mystery. Where's Luke Skywalker? Here's a set piece or two. There's Luke Skywalker. Here's another stupid bullshit mystery for a set piece or two. And it's just stringing them along. It's a carrot hanging at the end of a stick in front of a donkey so it walks.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, go on.
And that's it. That's the mystery box. And that's, aside from being a cargo cult Steven Spielberg in terms of his visual sensibility, which, I mean, he's good at as far as cargo cult Steven Spielberg
He's competent.
Yeah.
He knows the right direction to shoot the camera.
But as a storyteller, he's not really a storyteller. He's more like a magician. A
shitty ass magician.
He's Job Bluth. And he has one trick.
Yeah, he has one trick.
And he demands to be taken seriously.
Insert a Job line.
We're going to wait till after lunch for the tricks.
That's not a trick, Michael. It's a business opportunity. Okay, you can turn the music off. I already shot my wad.
Yeah, on that note, like, it's as someone who really, really fucking loved this movie when it came out, it's so spoiled in retrospect because now we know how it ends and how shitty that ending is, which I still haven't seen. But to know none of this is going to pay off really knocks the wind out of it, because it shows, well, they actually didn't plan out shit. And I think a good comparison which I still can't believe you haven't watched any of the Rebuild of Evangelion movies.
I watched the first two, I just don't remember.
Okay. Because even though, like, you know, it's up in the air how planned out they were by Hideaki Anno, like, as opposed to just, you know, coming up with things like, you know, from movie to movie, which I get the feeling that was what happened with the third one. But he was at least consistent with making sure to tie things up, knowing what sort of like plot mechanics and like details he was putting down, like knowing the very basics of setup and payoff, and knowing this movie, The Force Awakens, is all set up, no payoff.
Well, here's the thing, and this is a couple things. Yeah, that's the JJ Abrams plotting, is just keep layering in provocations. And that's the thing. The original Star Wars is a self-contained movie. There's a couple threads that pick up again in the next one, but it's a self-contained movie. And there was no plan. Like, they just, like, Leia is Luke's sister, Darth is his father. That was just shit they made up. But it's not blindingly obvious that they did. And it's not blindingly obvious. That's the thing with the next two movies, is it's also blindingly obvious that they're constantly reading and responding to the fucking discourse.
Yeah.
Like when they made Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi, I'm sure they were marketing aware, especially for Return. But like, they weren't like, there wasn't like Twitter and think pieces and YouTube or whatever that they had interns go and watch and fill out reports and come back like, well, people are saying that we need to increase the blah blah in the representation, and that this is problematic and that that's problematic, and well, we've got one faction that really wants Luke and Leia to get together, we've got another faction of fans that really want Han and Leia to get together, and we've got to measure which one we want to piss off and which one we want to appease, but maybe, if we tell the story this way, we can kind of half measure. And no, nobody cared. Nobody was that discourse, if it was happening in a place where it was largely invisible to the people making the movie, and the movies are much, much, much better for it.
The first camper arrived at the Cinerama on University Avenue shortly after noon on Tuesday. By 9 at night, the line encompassed several dozen people. The all-night vigil ends Wednesday morning at 11, when these people finally get to buy tickets to the first showing of The Empire Strikes Back. Do you think this is going to be as big as Star Wars? Bigger. And yet a lot of the critics are panning it.
Well, what do they know?
But like, this movie isn't, because it's so full of setup, it doesn't work as a self-contained film very well.
Yeah. Even if you're like looking at it from the perspective of this is just a like literal reboot of A New Hope in terms of like it's
A New Hope
structure and beats
finishes. There's like, there is still, Darth Vader's still alive. Luke, like there's hints of things that could come, but it's not
Luke's
like
character arc, you can say, is finished within that movie. Like, he's gone from
there is an arc. Yeah.
There is a completed arc.
So there isn't like setting up who is Darth Vader really. That's a twist. It's not like they set up in advance who is Darth Vader really. Who is Luke really? Like that stuff isn't mysteries.
Yeah, this movie ends where the next one literally begins. It ends with, we're giving, it's the return of Luke Skywalker. What is he going to do with the lightsaber Rey's giving back to him?
Yeah, this movie ends like a TV show cliffhanger. Like, come back for season 2. That's and almost literally a cliffhanger because they're standing on a cliff.
Which is great at marketing. It makes people want to see this movie, because again, when these were releasing, these were events.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Story itself is sacrificed for what will get people to watch the next one. And that's the same with like a lot of streaming shows and stuff. It's we're just desperately scrambling to get you to watch the next one at the expense of all else. And that's always been a thing to some degree or another, but it's really pronounced now in this particular time period. And Force Awakens, and the reason I want to discuss it is it's a really good example of that. The new Star Wars trilogy is a really good example of that, just as a unit.
On that note, do you think it's a good idea to segue into talking about how 2015, 2016 pilled this movie is and how beholden its substance rests with the cultural context and the fact that everyone was fucking crazy at the time?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like we're at like peak Gamergate. We're at peak Anita
Tumblr,
Sarkeesian.
media studies.
Just everybody is like, it's really breaking through, and everyone's starting to wonder if they're like secretly racist or misogynistic, or if it's okay to enjoy a fantasy movie where a woman's got her tits out. We're all terrified of being sexist, and we're all yelling at each other about it. And
there's nothing worse to be in the world or more despised than a straight white man.
And I mean, look, you know what? I think there's, in a basic level, like, it's good to step back and reassess and try to understand other people's perspectives. It just, it was kind of maybe a painful but necessary cultural adolescence that we're still going through. But, it was very much when we all really started to get self-conscious about it. And it is just, just I said, culture discourse bullshit is all over this movie.
Can I read a bit of, just to give you guys all a taste of this, again, an award-winning essay. An award-winning essay that just, it reads as the most 2015, 2016 Tumblr media analysis piece ever. So, by applying a psychoanalytic lens to the film's racial and gender politics, I read The Force Awakens as a commentary on white patriarchal anxiety. As the representative of the oppressive Oedipal father, the First Order is depicted in terms of white supremacist patriarchy, seeking to return the possession of societal power to its proper racial and gender structures. Threatened by the racial and gender transgressions of the New Republic and the Resistance, the fragility of white men's masculinity is embodied by Kylo Ren, whose turn to the dark side and the fascism of the First Order compensates for his insecure masculinity. Accordingly, Ren's desire to reclaim his patriarchal right over the galaxy places him within a distinctly racialized and gendered Oedipal dynamic, reasserting his entitlement to phallic power, though challenging those he deems unworthy of wielding it, faulty father figures, men of color, and women. Is that not like the most like Tumblr era media analysis just sprinkled with smart jargon?
And that's what they wanted.
That's what they wanted. You see what I'm doing?
People to do that.
What I'm seeing? Yes, I bought it. Hook, fucking, line, and sinker.
I mean, this movie is why in 2016, when Trump won the election, all the liberals started calling themselves the Resistance.
Literally.
And the movie, this is one of my pet peeves I want to talk about with this movie. So you've got the Resistance and the First Order.
Oh, you were hung up about
First
this.
Order. No, okay, well, hear me out.
Okay, no.
The First Order.
State your case.
They're called the Resistance, but they're actually the government in power. Right?
Or at least they're at very least being funded Republic. By the government.
Well,
power.
no, because I know somewhere in some peripheral material, I think it's explained that it's like the First Order is a remnant of the Empire that controls some corner of the galaxy, and the Resistance is like the Resistance.
It was an underground movement formed by Senators Bail Organa and Mon Mothma to oppose the reign of the Galactic Empire. While initially small and fragmented due to the rebellion being made up of many different separate rebel cells around the galaxy, by the Galactic Civil War, majority of those cells would come together and unite as the rebel.
you know, it's a color revolution.
Is it not? Is it
basically?
I mean, I always thought it was just like, you know, like if Biden's government was funding Antifa.
well, no, it's like Biden's government funding the MEK in Iran, but it doesn't actually matter because what we're dealing about is like you can't offload your plotting and story and whatever onto peripheral material. That's a cheat. What's in the movie is what's in the movie. And what's in the movie is very simply, they're called the Resistance because they think the audience is stupid. They think the audience is too stupid to know who the good guys are unless they're called the Resistance. They think if they call them like, you know, the Republic, they'll get too confused. So it's just, they're the Resistance, even though they actually represent the dominant power. Until conveniently, the extra big Death Star blows up Coruscant, capital of the Republic, which blows up the one element of the prequel movies that appears in this, and their whole fleet with it, so that the good guys can be the underdogs yet again.
They blew up the Hosnian system.
Yeah, I just know it's Coruscant.
It's not Corazon or whatever.
Coruscant. Coruscant. It's the cap. That's where the Republic government is centered. It's that city they keep going to in the prequel movies.
Oh, okay.
But it's just a cop out to make the underdogs again, to reset the status quo. But and then the First Order, and I mean, here's the thing: like the Empire in the original movie doesn't have a lot of ideological substance, but it's also just the power that's already in power.
There's no point where anyone makes a political statement. Like, it's not like, you know, the First Order is not putting out like, you know, the lower classes need to pay more taxes, or we don't get any of that political explanations.
Well, it's not that I need that. It's not that I need like policy planks. And I like there's the lack of real political substance in the original films is its own thing. I'm not trying to totally let those off the hook, but it's it doesn't matter to basic enjoyment of the movie that much because it's like, well, okay, you know, they massacre innocent people. Like, it's pretty, you know, like you at least have some observation of what they do that makes them bad. They build a Death Star. That's pretty bad. I mean, the First Order builds a Death Star. That's pretty bad. But they've also got like
they outfit an entire planet.
But they have the aesthetics of fascism, but with no substance. And in the first movie, it's like the stormtroopers look like Nazis, but they don't have banners. They don't have guys giving speeches. It's more just the Emperor's in power because he's the Emperor, and he's motivated by his own desire for power. That's enough.
And the name, much, and the reference to stormtroopers is enough. Like, everyone knows what a stormtrooper was.
No, but the point is, in this movie, they have that Hux
really
guy
front loaded,
in front of a bunch of banners giving a Nuremberg rally.
Yes, can I read the part of this essay where I just want to finish
that? I just want to finish my.
I know, just keep going.
And his speech is just something about how their order and the New Republic is disorder. And again, like, I'm not asking for policy planks, but like something. Like they like, if you're going to go even harder with the fascism illusions, if you're going to have the guy go out in front of a bunch of red flags and give a speech, his speech has to be about something.
Yeah, it's really not about anything.
And again, it's not because, you know, they want to capitalize on the moment without actually saying anything. You can't even have him come out and say he's like, and we're gonna kill all the aliens, or we're gonna strip away civil rights for droids or something. Like just something that motivates them, or that because they're fanatics. Like in the original Star Wars, nobody's a like, except maybe Darth Vader. Nobody's a fanatic. They're just guys doing their jobs. They're part of a governing military bureaucracy. And in this one, they're fanatics. They're fanatics committed to an ideological cause. And if you're going to do that, if that's what your bad guys are going to be, they have to have an ideological cause to go with their fanaticism.
It's just like a facsimile of the aesthetics without any of the like substance to it. So it's like here's what I had written on that particular scene you're referencing. Against a backdrop of blood red flags, General Hux becomes an intergalactic Hitler, shouting to a sea of meticulously lined stormtroopers that all remaining systems will bow to the First Order under the destructive power of Starkiller. His face twists with a practically audible German drawl, declaring their victory on the last day of the Republic as the stormtroopers raise their arms in a Sieg Heil. Accordingly, whatever. But yeah, there is all it is like, we're gonna take over the world. It's all just a variation of we're gonna take over the galaxy.
That's a problem that's built into Star Wars, is it's Dungeons and Dragons morality, where it's like good is a thing, like, or it's like evil is just like a thing you commit yourself to as a belief system. Like, that's a good way of putting
it. No, literally, that's like the best way of putting it.
And it does it, and that's a thing that just feels so out of place in the modern world. Like, I think we all understand the idea that like history's bad guys believe they're the good guys. Everybody does. Like, there's very few people in the world that are just like,
I see good things about Hitler also.
I know the things I do are evil, and I do them anyway because I want to, and those people are probably more nihilists than like ideologically committed to evil. So it's just weird to be doing that, and because these movies do it like where Han and Leia are talking about our son is gone to the dark side, but they're still later. Like it's even worse than it is in the original movies, how they deal with this embarrassingly juvenile moral binary.
Or as I argue, Kylo Ren's problem is that he's an insecure, fragile white male, and he wants to assert his phallic power. But as the grandson of Darth Vader, wielding around a phallic object.
He's the second most interesting thing in these movies conceptually, and the most interesting thing functionally, because they don't give any time to Finn after this first movie.
Yeah.
And they don't do much of him in the first one. Because he is like, instead of Darth Vader, who's generally like cool and collected and menacing, he is this
petulant child.
Literally worshipping the remains of Darth Vader is like too much fan service on the nose for me. But it is like, the idea that he is this.
He throws a tantrum.
Sad
he throws multiple tantrums.
He wants to be scary and evil, and then he kind of sucks at it, and he's constantly mad at himself and spazzing out and breaking things because he can't pull off being the bad guy good enough, because he can't be intimidating.
He can't measure up. He's dick too small.
And he can't. Yeah, and that's interesting. That's kind of interesting.
That's
kind of an interesting bad guy.
And I will say, like, Adam Driver, because before he got cast in this, he was mostly known as the guy who fucked Lena Dunham on Girls. Everyone kind of just made fun of his face. But, like...
That is funny to...
He, as Kylo Ren, I will say, boys, listen up. If you're if you can't get pussy, and you're like, you kind of look like you've got weird facial structure, and you're kind of gangly. The solution: dye your hair black, and just wear like Comes de Garcon outfits. Just dress in black, like blankets, like post-apocalyptic style, and then just be brooding. And girls are gonna want to fuck you so badly. Because the way, I don't know how aware you are of just how much people wanted to fuck Adam Driver and Kylo Ren.
I'm deeply aware. I am deeply, deeply aware.
Are you as aware of how badly people wanted Finn and Poe to fuck? Because that was the big Tinky Winky Fipsy La La Fo. That was the other thing that, like, speaking about this all projected upon meaning, just in the basis that this is just like, incorporating the cultural moment in order to appeal to its audience. Like they really did some queer baiting. They did a queer bait in this movie.
I think the queers are the I think the queers are the ones doing the baiting.
Something I remember just viscerally when this came out was just my Tumblr dashboard was just covered in people thirsting after Oscar Isaac or Adam Driver, and people drawing like pictures of Finn and Poe kissing. There are like this, like as we were watching it, I mentioned like this does kind of like Bucky and Steve. It has like the things that lend themselves very nicely to drawing in like the crowd of people who want to see like two handsome guys kiss, and like it lends itself to that queer reading without committing to it. So like queer baiting.
They you could say Ray is the self-insert, but it looks like the women who wanted the movie really wanted Adam Driver to be the insert.
They teased it. There was it's a footnote in the essay I wrote, but a big interest at the time was the suspicion that Poe Dameron is supposed to be gay. It was a theory that became popular within the Star Wars fan base after Oscar Isaac, in response to a Star Wars fan, response to a question regarding the existence of any romances in the film, and you're gonna like this, told Ellen DeGeneres in an interview on her show, "You have to look very closely. You have to watch it a few times to see the little hints. But there was, at least I was playing romance." That's regarding his scenes with.
Do you think he's just being playful himself, or did they tell him to do that?
I
feel like that could go either way.
That could go either way.
And here's the thing: like, if they retro-engineered a romance between the two of them to appease fandom, that would probably annoy me, because writing in response to fandom, especially to appease it, is just something I hate.
That's
I
also
really hate.
like stupid.
And I hate the mentality of fans to like dictate how a story should go to suit their whatever their desire is. I'm kind of when it comes to being a fan or enjoyer of something, I'm very much like you'll get what you get and you'll like it, which is what my dad used to say about dinner when I was a kid.
My mom would be like, "You don't eat your portion of vegetables, you have to eat the whole pot of vegetables," and that pretty effective.
Yeah, no, I think that like audiences should be treated like overly picky children at dinner. Actually, complete with beatings.
Oh no! Don't do that. No.
Not children. No, I don't think we should beat children, but I think that we should beat people who participate in fandom. Unless you're a fan of the show.
Give us money. Cha-ching.
If you subscribe to the $5 Patreon tier, you're exempt from the beatings. But like setting aside fandom shit that just innately irritates me. Like, yeah, put some gay dudes in Star Wars, or women, or whatever. Why not?
But like to
like actually do
that,
it.
To actually like
commit to it. Don't do that shit of like, oh, maybe there's a gay romance in our movie if you look real hard, but not actually putting one in because you don't want people to get mad at your movie too, because you want every possible audience.
Which is there's no excuse for that anymore.
You're spending $200 million on this, and you need to make $500 billion.
Because there's no excuse for that anymore, because hundreds of other movies have shown, gay romances without it being like a big fucking
also don't
deal.
Act like anybody's got to be impressed or like your movie because you did it. We're way past that.
Fuck showboating. That's just reeks of inauthenticity.
And that's another thing. Like, they'll really start to lean, especially with the marketing for the next two movies, is like they'll lean even more into the like. Actually, this movie is diverse, and it's queer, and it's feminist, and you're one of the chuds if you don't like it, and you have to like it, and if you don't like it, you hate women, and you don't want women to have fun, and you don't want women to enjoy Star Wars, and yeah, and that's God, this has been such an effective marketing tool. I feel like the efficacy of that might be waning now, maybe, but it worked for a few years, man.
People have gone onto it finally, I think.
And it drove me mental because I knew right away with that shit. Like, I could, like, it was so obvious to me, and seeing so many other people like buy into it kind of drove me insane. But it was hard to talk about because if you did, people would just think, oh, there's another dude bro who doesn't like that they put women in his Star Wars.
Yeah,
and I think they should make an all-female Star Wars.
Of people just responding like to the threat of being strawmen, like ideological strawmen. Which is basically like day, this essay I wrote is tantamount to, in that it's like me arguing that, like, for an idea of Kylo Ren as representative of the sort of people who were really pissed off about this new Star Wars movie being led by a woman, 2 men of color, you know, and being like, this is SJW propaganda. And it's like, you know, you're so caught up in that discourse and dialogue at the time. I'll tell you the truth, it never occurred to me to take a step back and consider like the profiting and business side and the capitalist implications of Disney acquiring the Star Wars franchise and how this was all a business and being run for profit. Why this stuff is there is purely to get people to go buy the product.
This is a thing with, because there was so much, I had a couple friends that were really kind of into the fandom for the new trilogy, and I don't want to pick on them at all. And I would read some of their stuff, and like, you know, they're like smart, thoughtful people, but they would like find all this symbolism and all this setup, and here's how it's going to go, and all this like really kind of conduct this kind of hermeneutic exegesis, and I don't think there was nothing to it, and they kept like making all these predictions about how it's all going to play out, and I was like, I kept thinking like, this is a product. The next movie will be however they think it needs to be to make money, and they will completely shift. Even if they are setting stuff up, they will completely 180 on it, which they did. If they suddenly decide that it's not lucrative enough to do it, so you can't get invested in any of it. You can't read it as a definite work of art with things to say or indicate, because it's not committed to anything it's doing. And it drove me, and it just like, and the same with a lot of the Marvel stuff, and a lot of the high and like the high budget super corporate franchise stuff. People still interpret it like it's art being made by people, at least halfway, and never ever look at it as a product like you would a Ford pickup truck.
Right.
And that was kind of why I wanted to do this podcast, and a thing that I want to make sure we continue to do is and do more of is always look at these first and foremost as industrial products.
Yeah.
The same way you'd look at an iPhone.
Right. And yeah, I mean, I think like how Iron Man sort of is a turning point in the Hollywood blockbuster movie landscape that got us where we are now, just as important, if not more, sort of fateful to where we are now, is Disney's acquisition of Lucasfilm, which people like, this is one of the, I'm looking at an entertainment weekly article I referenced in that essay. Just, it's official. Mickey Mouse will join forces with Obi-Wan as Disney has completed its acquisition of Lucasfilm. Walt Disney Company announced in a statement on Friday that the deal is done. Under terms of merger agreement, according to Disney, at closing, Disney issued roughly 37 million shares and made a cash payment of $2.2 million. The closing price of Disney shares was $50.
Wait, are you sure that wasn't billion?
Well, the whole merger's total value of $4.06 billion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this included Lucasfilm's assets, include Star Wars franchise, future sequels set for 2015. So everything that's basically come since, plus Industrial Lights and Magic and Skywalker Sound. Here's a very faithful ending. What? Yeah.
LucasArts, the game development company that George Lucas also started. Was that part of that?
No, it doesn't.
They might have been shut
here.
down, but I wonder if they I'm just trying to figure out who owns Monkey Island or whatever.
I don't know, but this article ends with Disney is on track to broadening its pop culture reach big time, and we live in that society now, and it fucking sucks.
It's brutal.
The people who were pissed off and worried when Disney bought the Star Wars franchise, have been completely justified and vindicated in the wake of the completion of the sequel trilogy. In my opinion, but can I just to give some sort of a little bit more insight? I'm going to refer back to this cringe essay I wrote. Part of the reason I think this movie was so well received, and I'd like for this to transition into us talking about how phoned in Harrison Ford is. But it was people were still really hating and didn't like the prequels. So when this came around, and as we said, this still looks pretty good. This looks a lot better than most Marvel movies. People were just happy to fucking see actual puppets and people walking on actual sets and not smooth Yoda or Hayden Christensen saying really cringy dialogue or bad CGI pairs. People felt like Star Wars had already reached the lowest form of itself it possibly could be, that, Disney's in charge of these Marvel movies. These Marvel movies have been pretty successful. Disney's gonna take this, shoddy old Star Wars franchise and give it a facelift, give it a rejuvenation.
I remember when they hired JJ Abrams in 2014 thinking that was a good idea. And I mean, from a business sense, it was. Because I remember watching his Star Trek movies and thinking, this is kind of missing a lot of the point of Star Trek, but it kind of seems like he'd rather make Star Wars. And, but I hadn't caught on to what his deal was at that point.
No one was quite clued in on the grift.
Yeah. But I also had never rewatched any of his movies or anything.
No, yeah.
That's what happens when you rewatch them. It's a rewatch or just thinking really hard about them after watching them.
That it breaks the spell. It breaks whatever spell it held upon you.
But Harrison Ford does not. Harrison Ford doesn't like
so
Star Wars.
Funny.
He doesn't like or care about Star Wars.
He hates his press tour.
Did you shoot Greedo first, or did Greedo shoot you first?
I don't care.
He's just upfront about the fact that he only did this for the money.
Yeah.
He also broke his leg while filming this. So yeah, he made how much money? They paid him
Which,
15.
How? Because this whole movie he just kind of walks around. He's not doing a lot of jumping.
He bumbles around and says trailer lines. His first
and he shoots a guy without even looking at him, like he's fucking John Wick, which
his first line in the movie.
Chewie, we're home.
And it's the most sentimental goddamn thing, and that was what finally broke it for me. I was like, oh no, it's so horny.
And I mean, Han Solo likes his spaceship. He's proud of it the way a guy's proud of his car. But I don't think he looks at it like you look at your childhood home. I don't think that's how he would feel about it.
Kind of not fourth wall breaking, but it's we're finally back in the original trilogy sort of feel and texture. That thing you missed so bad that George Lucas didn't give you with these prequels.
Real home is your childhood nostalgia.
Yeah, that's the home.
And that's the thing. Another thing that drives me insane with these movies is they're constantly and all the what we'll call legacy franchise stuff, like those new Halloween movies are super guilty of this, Ghostbusters Afterlife, or whatever, it's all this the original properties and the nostalgia around them and their cultural impact and the fandom around them all have proxies in the universe of the movie. So like within the universe of these new Star Wars movies, Han Solo is a legend and the Millennium Falcon is a legend and Luke Skywalker is a legend and all these characters have heard of them and they're fans of them and they're all so important in their legacy and it's just become Star Wars about Star Wars. Ghostbusters about Ghostbusters. It's like, who the fuck wants that? You know,
it's just regurgitated. Like, it's like a mother bird eating worms and spitting it back up into her baby's mouth.
We're watching a movie that's about how much we liked the previous movie.
Yeah, basically, like, more or less.
What the fuck is that? I know I liked the previous movie. I could just watch the previous movie. You know, and it's really irritating and it's really sad because it's like I'm not a strictly anti-nostalgia guy. You know, it's like nice to go back and revisit things you love. And you can kind of, you know, the distance between you now and you then and the time, you can kind of learn from that. It's all good. But like it's wallowing and it's refusing to ever do anything else. And it's also this like this reverence for these kind of key elements of pop culture from the past that we're so in awe of them, we can never imagine doing anything too different or better. You know, we can imagine like tweaking and correcting them to be like, well, we're going to put more gay women in them or whatever. But we can't imagine actually like surpassing it. We can't imagine doing something. We can't imagine a better Star Wars, and we definitely can't imagine doing something that's not Star Wars and is better than Star Wars. We're so in awe of this stuff, we can't like get out from under its shadow and do our own thing culturally and evolve.
Do you think that's kind of like, because this, I feel like this was around the time like the term reboot, like rebooting a franchise really took a hold? I feel like, you're kind of explaining sort of the underlying definition.
Well, I feel like this is when we
like the idea of the reboot, where it's, you know, completely like it is still reverential of its original form to, you know,
that was the thing with the reboot, not just reverential, bro. It's like you're trying to appease all the people that want
the same
a
thing.
sequel and more of the same, and appease people that think they want something different and kind of do both at the same time. Or at least appear to be doing both at the same time. Really, you're just doing the one. But like that's like The Thing was released as just Thing 2011 was just released as The Thing and functionally worked as a remake, except it also was canonical to the first movie.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to be both is the soft reboot. That was the soft reboot thing.
What's a hard? And then there's a hard reboot.
Is just a real honest to God remake.
Reboot. There's a bottom reboot.
A twink reboot,
otter reboot, bear reboot.
And it's again because it's driven. I mean, it's driven by the. That's the thing. It's not even necessarily driven by markets per se, because with enough money and cultural influence, you dictate what the market is. People will go to watch what you give them to a large extent.
Yeah,
is if it reaches a certain level of being adequately entertaining, people will just
are eating
watch
up Megan,
what you
for
give
example. Like that's shit. I'm anti-Megan, everybody.
So the idea that this is like what people, I don't want to say that this is what people want. I think this is just what people will accept, which is two very different things.
Because they don't consume anything better. Because people are not going out of their way
given the choice and given an informed choice, I think a lot of people would. They're just not given an informed choice to. When something different does come out, it's, you know, the studios are so scared of it that they don't give it adequate promotion in the first place. But like, you know, so I don't want to. So it's like not even strictly market logic, but it's like the very specific political economy we have now, with a very specific level of consolidation and debt leverage and overall amount of money in the system that leads to a very, very calculated and conservative and risk averse mentality among the capitalist class and the people making decisions, at least in this industry. Well, really, in most of the industries, how much have cars evolved or anything?
Yeah.
Like that, right?
Well, this now has me thinking, because the Force Awakens, like 2015, 2016, I think are very pivotal years of like the pop cultural landscape, especially the one we're really looking at, and doing this fucking show for. But because there were two other reboots of IP franchises around the same time. Mad Max Fury Road came out earlier in 2015.
Yeah, I think you can call that a reboot to some extent.
And 2016, but Shin Godzilla. And as I think you and I would both agree, those are great movies.
You can see my Shin Godzilla poster.
Yeah, there's with his little cancer arms, cancer patient arms.
The difference between them is one, and I'm kind of curious how this happened in that environment of Hollywood. Mad Max Fury Road was a passion project driven by George Miller.
Yeah.
So it was like an actual movie made by a guy who wanted to make movies, who made the original movies. And he was a guy looking not just to cash in on what he'd done before, but to creatively and thematically and at the level of like spectacle and scope outdo what he'd done in the 70s and 80s.
Like an artist.
Yeah, he wanted to outdo himself with the concept and that world and that type of movie. And he did. Like
it's a perfect movie. And I was
like not just the same thing, but bigger, but like more developed artistically and creatively.
Like I should have, like, I was debating before I had written this paper, it was a final paper for my feminist media studies class. And I had debated on doing it on Star Wars or Fury Road. And I really, in retrospect, I really wish I did it on Fury Road because it would have held up.
And Shin Godzilla's, not the same guy, but that's the same impulse driving it to a large extent. Like you watch the first episode of Evangelion. And it's obvious Anno is a huge Godzilla fan.
Yeah, or like Ultraman fan of just you see the
he's
references.
Just a nerd and huge fucking nerd in general. But like it's obvious, like, and he's coming at it. He wants to do what the first Godzilla was to the post World War II, post atomic bombings moment, and that's a really important thing to bear in mind with the original Godzilla. Not just it's an allegory for the atomic bomb in an abstract way, but it was like it came out less than 10 years after those bombings. All the people in the theater watching the first Godzilla, watching all those scenes of like buildings collapsing, lived through not just the atomic bombings, but the harrowing conventional and napalm bombings that actually leveled whole cities before they even dropped the A-bombs. So that's the context of that movie. And that's Shin Godzilla is that for the post-Fukushima moment. Not in a cynical going through the checklist of the discourse way, but in like a genuine
about the incompetence of the response
to the period way. Like that's the difference of like modernizing in like the sense of refreshing a product line for new sensibilities versus like reinterpreting a text artistically for a new context.
Yeah.
That's what separates the two. And the new Star Wars is the former, and something like Fury Road or Shin Godzilla is obviously neither of those devoid of commercial influence. Nothing with any money behind it can be, but they're much more so that direction. There's at least a strong element of it there.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what makes like an older blockbuster. There's a good one is there's some way or more the other, but there's some balance counterbalancing the commercial interest with sincere creative impulses and craftsmanship, versus things which are so lopsidedly commercial that whatever craftsmanship or creative impulse is there is drowned out or filtered or abandoned or never present in the first place.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, all that these movies do are just inspire people to ascribe meaning onto it. And
that's again, their big
I fell
trick.
for it hook, line, and sinker.
That's their big trick is being so vaguely defined and so featureless that you see your own. They're like a surface that is so shiny and smooth. You look at it and you just see your reflection back.
Right.
All you see is whatever you bring to it because there's so little else there beyond just the at some level being basically entertaining in the sense of like moving images and colors and sound. It has long frustrated me how much people fall for it. And I'm glad that you had that moment of epiphany when we were rewatching it. That was very, admittedly, it's kind of gratifying.
You son of a bitch. But for real though, like, I will say, comparatively, just because that's the way I have to deal with this shit. As I said, better looking than most of these Marvel movies. Like, I can see, you know, there's nice lighting, the sets look good, costuming's good. You know, they're puppets. They're creatures. They're funky little guys. There's like when they go to the katana, when they go to the canteen run by Lupita Nyong'o as a CGI alien bug lady. Or no, we said she looks like a shriveled peach. She looks like a shriveled peach.
I said no.
You said no.
I stand by.
There was like a group of like shrimp aliens just sitting together, and I pointed up like, look at those guys. Those guys are great. Like, it does have those little touches of like the Jim Henson, like Frank Oz sort of puppetry of the original trilogy. Once again, in contrast to the prequels.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Just like dog shit. There are things I still like about this movie. I would still protect BB-8 with my life. Every time BB-8 is on screen, I'm like, look at him go! Yay! Rolls. He reminds me like a corgi.
That's the thing. Like,
that's the
I
other
totally.
Thing. That's the other thing. It's like cuteness. What if you can't hook them through political, like, cultural, like, incentives? Hook them with a cute thing. And I'm still falling for that shit. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's not that there aren't well done things about the movie. I just feel like that they're all under like they're embellishments on a hollow object. That crumbles in your hand if you try to get too much of a grip on it. You know, like, I mean, there's a lot of locations, photography, and sets and practical effects.
It's doing the bare minimum.
When they do use CGI, it's like integrated and composited like well enough that it mostly, aside from maybe a couple sequences, is like looks good or at least not troublesome. Some, you know, like, it's a pretty good looking movie that you know, setting aside like the lightsaber fight at the end, if it had the dramatic weight behind it like the one in Empire did, would be the best lightsaber fight in Star Wars. Like, it looks really great and is it's a like good
climax.
Fight without feeling like the lightsaber fights in the prequels are like, they feel like over choreographed, you know, like they're just too tight and like dudes dancing that it's like they lose the sense of like,
these are more like actual fights and sword fights.
You don't feel like people are fighting when you watch them. You just kind of feel like you're watching a really elaborately choreographed dance. And I feel like a fight needs to have that sense of stake and improvisation that what's happening is happening spontaneously. That's a minor thing, but again, it's like, but it lacks. Like, even watching it, I was just like, I'm surprised at like kind of how much my eyes are glazing over watching this. Even going in, like, you know, because I saw it when it came. I remember liking it when it came out, and I saw it in the theater. In the moment, there was all the hype, and I didn't have time to reflect on the movie, and there's no sequels to come out, and not pay anything off, and blah blah blah. I remember like a lot of the stuff kind of bothered me, but I was able to set it aside the first time I watched it. Then, you know, sequels came out, and I saw it one or two more times because like it would be on for the kids, my niece and nephews, and I was just kind of like. I think I've made this. I don't know if I made this kind of conversation on the recording, but I've said it in other places before. And when we're talking about it off mic, it's like cotton candy. Like, it's very sweet.
Yeah. That's your go-to.
It has no
metaphor.
structure or substance, and it dissolves in your mouth, and then it's gone. And then, you know, you watch it again, and it doesn't even have that level of immediate gratification. Yeah, it's just too bad because, again, like, a lot of pieces, a lot of interesting concepts, a lot of craft and skill at a technical level. Like, all the elements are there.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff.
More sincere, creative drive behind it, more commitment. If it was just like someone, not even someone other than JJ Abrams, if maybe just JJ Abrams was like diminished in his role as a director and didn't have a co-writing credit. As we would learn, a Disney mega corporation trying to do a second MCU with Star Wars in 2015 product.
Yeah,
you know, and it's just too fucking bad.
Wasted potential. The movie series.
Wasted potential. Yeah.
Wasted potential because as we know from Shin Godzilla and Mad Max Fury Road. These movies, these kind of IP adaptations are capable of being excellent and being meaningful.
Yeah, Star Wars is a bit of a different kettle of fish too because of what it is culturally.
It is, in terms of commercialization as well.
I mean, Godzilla maybe is not totally unlike that, but
we should really do a Godzilla movie or Tonkatsu or even I saw Shin Ultraman the other night and it rocked. I just kept thinking, like, we don't get cool shit like this. I actually
haven't seen most Godzilla or other kaiju movies. I'd seen the original.
Kind of the same model.
Yeah, I've seen bits of them. They seem like they get very silly because the original Godzilla movie is not a silly
and kid friendly. No,
not a silly movie. Yeah, it's meant to be at least somewhat harrowing. It's a bit of a genuine horror film.
Yeah.
At least it strives to be. So I'd seen that one. So going into Shin Godzilla, I had the context of the original, at least, which I think is maybe more relevant than the other stuff. And I've had the context of like Evangelion and Gunbuster. But with Ultraman, I have very little context going in.
I went in completely blind. I went in completely blind. So there were a lot of moments where I was just completely confused and flabbergasted, but it's very silly, and it very much lends itself to a similar kind of vibe. Like Shin Godzilla was goofy a little bit. The titular Ultraman is a very autistic government worker guy. And the first scene where he's Ultraman, and he kicks a kaiju's ass, he does like a 360 like flip in the air, like a airplane propeller to kick the shit out of this kaiju, and it is some of the most joyous moments I've had in any sort of superhero movie. Like, we don't get that sort of silliness, like an embrace of the inherent silliness.
It's funny
of the
that
genre.
We don't use the term superhero with all of that stuff, with all that Japanese media, even though it is totally appropriately.
They are superheroes, essentially.
Yeah, they are. but because they don't quite adhere to the same structure, we don't use the term. But like, yeah, Sailor Moon's a superhero. You know, Jotaro Joestar's a superhero. Ultraman is a
Goku
superhero.
is a superhero.
Goku's a superhero. Like,
Goku is also
feel like
my
that
dad.
term will annoy people, but like in the general sense, they are. They're also an example of why, you know, what we call superhero stuff doesn't have to be what it is. It is capable of being, if you know, stories about people with extraordinary powers doing in a classically sense heroic things don't have to be so fucking lame or fascistic. You know, I mean, they're not going to be the peak of expression of the human experience, but they can be well-crafted entertainment and even art.
Right.
You know, we're not really anti-superhero in the broad sense.
We're
just
not
kind of anti what DC and Marvel have become as industrial manufacturers of
as people who are frustrated
the cultural
by
equivalent of the stuff.
Yeah,
from the stuff.
I should really rewatch that because I know that
is a fun.
I really was off put by Michael Moriarty's performance because he sounded like I thought he was drunk.
Yeah, I was fascinated by his performance.
I was like, this guy is drunk.
I think it takes what would be like a fun but kind of forgettable movie and makes it something worth revisiting and memorable.
Okay,
because he is such a weird guy. He's such a weird guy in that movie, and so totally. Like unlike a normal protagonist for that kind of movie or almost any movie, like he was constantly saying things and doing things that like surprised me and threw me off. And I found that
Daniel Craig's Knives Out got what's that guy's name? Benoit Blanc, like on like
I haven't seen Knives Out.
Yeah, it basically like a southern belle on painkillers.
He's really so strange, but I found it super. I found it super compelling because it's like so many things you think another character is going to get mad or passionate. He just kind of slides around it or waves like it's, I don't know. I found it just, and I don't know if it's a consequence of what they were trying to do with the movie or with him just like not caring, but in an interesting, but it worked for me. I thought it was really, really endearing. And I kind of want to rewatch it and just think about different ways to approach like horror or monster movie or whatever protagonists.
Well, just
but yeah, I was just thinking, which I don't even know if anyone listening, how many people listening will get the reference. The long and short of it is the stuff is like a commercial product that this company sells that they just find bubbling out of the ground that kind of looks like whipped cream or shaving cream, and it's like this like addictive thing in a tub that people eat like ice cream, and eventually it kind of like possesses them and takes them over, and it does sort of stuff that's like half Invasion of the Body Snatchers and half the Blob.
Larry Cohen.
This stuff is
guy whose movies you should watch instead of these of Marvel.
Pop cultural the stuff.
Yeah,
it's addictive, corrosive, mind controlling, generic corporate substance that you consume.
I mean, I guess we're into the watch something else section of this.
That stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, in addition to like Ultraman, I also watched. I actually watched Hidden Fortress for the first time, and while it wasn't as like because that was one of George Lucas's major influences in the original Star Wars.
Can't be that hidden if they found
it. I know. But yeah, I would definitely. 2023 needs to be the year I watch more Kurosawa movies because I've really been like lacking on those because Mifune, holy shit, damn, you shit with that ass, Mifune. That like
He's got
like just damn boy, you thick, just the thickest ass thighs. Just Hidden Fortress, especially because he's like wearing like a loincloth diaper.
Are thick thighs attractive on a man?
If you look like Mifune, yeah. But he's delicious to look at as well. I'm like trying to not really related, but recently I watched a movie called Night on the Galactic Railroad. It was like an anime movie about two anthropomorphic cats, and they go on. It's basically the Polar Express on drugs and with like subtle themes of Christianity. And then one of the spoilers. One of the cats drowns and dies, and the movie ends with the cat's father telling the other cat, you know, that's life. It's heartbreaking.
That's something.
You know what? As I said in my Letterboxd review, it was like a similar dynamic to like Haoru and Shinji, and just as devastating. So yeah, it's if you feel like being sad, or kicking back and doing some drugs, watch Night on the Galactic Railroad. It's also cute because cats are cute. A lot of the shots in that movie are just like a cat looking like which is cute.
That makes me think a little bit of Cat Soup.
Oh my god, Cat Soup. Yeah, it kind of gave me similar vibes, but it's like more like a children's storybook kind of vibe to it. But, like the Polar Express, if the Polar Express was kind of nihilistic. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was actually, I think, was it on the thing we actually failed to record that we talked about this, but Nazca?
I think maybe.
I think it was, because we were talking about
as well.
How kind of anodyne and textureless Rey is as a character, and then like you brought up Nazca as kind of a counterexample of a
okay.
lead
Well, I think we
female
did.
character
I think we did record that.
Like a kind of sci fantasy story. I was gonna say, yeah, Nazca, the Valley of the Wind.
Yeah. There you go.
The anime, and actually better read the manga because it's a lot more.
I should read that.
Has a much more filled out and a bit darker kind of version of the world and the plot. It gets a lot. There's more like interesting kind of geopolitical wranglings and a lot of. It's a good manga. I'm just trying to think. Is there anything else like?
I mean, that's like a Shin Godzilla and Mad Max Fury Road, or
there you go.
The obvious alternatives as well.
I was just trying to think if I could think of like a good space opera or something, but they don't make that many movies of those, and most of them.
You liked that Flash Gordon movie? I
did. Yeah, no, I guess I could say the 1980 Flash Gordon. It's not like a great movie in and of itself. It's just a lot of fun to watch. It's just very strange. And has a lot of really interesting, saturated, colorful production design and costume design. It's just kind of a hoot. It's a good like, because it's not like a movie that will, I think, reward like really critical viewing, but it's a great like some buddies together and smoke a joint, have a couple drinks, and you can kind of talk over it and watch it. It's great like fun group watch type movie for that sort of experience. So we've got a Batman Returns episode up on the Patreon, not a commentary, a full conversation episode. Just $3 a month gets you all our bonus content, and we will keep putting more out there for you as we go into this new year. We want to
and maybe if we get enough patrons, you'll be able to pay us enough money that we'll subject ourselves to watching Velma.
I'm not making any promises on that one.
No, not making any promises,
but you know what? If we get the higher tiers, we don't have a lot of stuff other than just kind of like bragging rights and Discord roles and shouts out right now. But if we get a few more people, we can start doing things like Q&As, suggest bonus episodes and things to watch, votes on the suggestions. Like we can start doing that kind of stuff. We just need a few more people to
we're like we need like 10 or at least 20 people, or like 15, at least 15 people, maybe
15, 20, 100, 1,000 people.
Not everyone
actually
should
might be
our,
too
our
many.
patron.
That might be a little intimidating. Get that big. But
wouldn't it be funny to just make a fortune off of this?
Frankly, I would be both shocked and thrilled if we got to a point where it's like we could each like pay a utility bill off of this.
Yeah.
Every
That'd
month,
be cool.
or get a round of like a good round of groceries for the month.
That'd be cool.
That would already be pretty thrilling.
Yeah. But you know what? We should tease our other thing that we're going to be working on.
Oh yeah, so we're gonna have a special guest Cole on, aka the Java Jigga from Twitter.
He's going to talk to us about Spider-Man.
Many podcasts.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, to give us a whole
Spider-Man.
a kind of a rundown of the history of Spider-Man as a comic book character, as a kind of pop culture figure, some big arcs, other adaptations. It's just kind of a whole what's the deal with Spider-Man?
What's the deal with Spider-Man?
And then we'll be following that up, maybe depending on how scheduling works out, consecutively or non-consecutive. But then we'll be following
doing
that up with
Homecoming.
Spider-Man Homecoming episode with Cole also. So super excited about that. I think that's gonna be a lot of fun and very interesting. Patreon.com/Marvelous Death. All the necessary information in the episode description, and barring that, if you can give us likes, retweets, positive ratings on iTunes, all that
Tell
stuff.
people to listen to us.
Super helpful.
By the time people are listening to this, I've probably published my Megan review.
Megan.
If you want to talk about forced memes, me threegan. So yeah, go check out my writing on the
you
arts
hated that movie, didn't you? You really thought that was a piece of shit.
It sucks.
Which it looks like it is. Blumhouse movies are generally fucking terrible.
It's like why, especially when Chucky's having like a nice like second wind in his career. Like why the fuck would you give me this mediocre shit when I have a full buffet of things to taste and enjoy, and you're giving me like Taylor Momsen sex doll and a wig that doesn't really do anything fun with sharp objects. She does kill Ronnie Chang. He fucking sucks in the movie. Holy shit. So unfunny. Yeah, anyways, till next time, guys.
Don't watch something else.
Don't watch
Megan.
Don't watch Megan.
All right. All right, thanks again for listening, everybody, and I hope that 2023 is a better year for you than 2022 was. For you and you and you and all of us.
Yeah, sayonara, babes.
Also on January 8th, Ferretti Bago Creek County Park will host an afternoon of inner tubing. But remember, sleds and toboggans are not permitted. Do you hear that, Chad? Keep your damn toboggan out of Bago Creek. If I catch you down there with a sled, zipping around like a maniac and endangering those precious children, next month I'll be identifying your skull at Bendix Woods County Park.